Kouzes and Posner's Leadership Challenge is the core text for the course. I think of it as the backbone for the course. They have comprehensive coverage of leadership topics that we'll revisit as we move through the course. What I really like about their perspective is first, they've been at it for a pretty long time. They're in their fifth edition, and every edition has added more and more research that they personally conduct. And it's research that's based on leadership behaviors. They've really gone and worked extremely hard to capture the variety of leadership behaviors and come to an understanding of what are the best practices that people engage in that really have a difference. And you'll see in their book, without being research intensive, they talk about the research they've done. They draw upon examples of, very typical kind of managers. It's not just CEOs. They're talking about leadership exercised at every level of the organization. One of the things that they have in common with Cotter, and it's worth noticing, is they emphasize that leadership is not a set of traits that are inherited or are, something a person has or does not have. They really talk about their sets of behaviors and that these behaviors can be learned. They also very much focus on the interactivity that's happening in organizations. So their leaders are in an organizational context. And what's happening in the organization and how the leaders respond to and lead what's happening in the organization is a very important part of their perspective. And we will talk about this at times as the kind of symbolic communication on the part of leaders, which basically means that what leaders do conveys meaning to people. It sends messages about what their values are, what the firm's values are, what's rewarded, what's appreciated. And I think that's a very important part of a nuanced understanding of leadership, and it's a very important part about being an effective leader is to start to understand that not only are you doing things, but you're conveying messages through what you do, how you act, how you talk about things. The book focuses on a set of practices that anyone can learn. And the notion is very much kind of as we've been exposed to in the Mintzberg and Cotter, is that there are sets of behaviors or there's conduct that can be transformative for workplaces. And the whole book and the whole course were interested in mastering that conduct and really understanding it and the nuances of this thing that we're calling leadership. I want you to specifically look at, first, as you're doing the reading, the overlap in perspective with Cotter. Both emphasize behaviors to be learned. There is a whole leadership literature that talks about kind of traits and communication skills and being tall. I mean, there are all kinds of things that are looking at the attribution or judgments of people who are leaders. But the emphasis in this literature and in our class is that there are things that we can learn, masteries that we can have that can make a difference in our effectiveness in organization and in our leadership, the value add that we provide to organizations. As you read this, be sure to look for and understand how Kouzes and Posner characterize organizations and work relationships. There is very much this sense of, as a leader, we're embedded in the social system. And they have a perspective that's also, I say, very respectful of the employees. The employees are depicted as and talked about as people who are actively involved choice makers. One of the choices they make is the contributions that they are going to give to the firm or withhold from the firm. And an awful lot of the leadership value add from this perspective is what we can motivate people to do, how we engage them, not just their hands, but the book will also talk about engaging their mind and engaging their heart, right? It's not just, you know, they're working hard, it's they're working smart, they're looking to themselves be value add. And I think what you'll see, and will become apparent, but look for this, is this notion of how leadership adds value to the organization. We're no longer, when we've really ascended to and are effective leaders, we're no longer adding value by our individual contributions. In fact, we cease to be individual contributors, and our contributions may be actually fairly hard to measure. But in fact, the value added is what we get out of the organization. You're going to be introduced to very much the overarching perspective in Kouzes and Posner. It's going to be introduced. I'd like you to also go back to the course objectives, which are listed on the syllabus, and kind of relate back to kind of the things that they're talking about, of what they're trying to help you achieve, and relate those back to the course syllabus. I think it'll also help you kind of see how the course is structured and how the different material relates to this really common backbone that we have in the course, that is this text.